Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of the DS Layered. I've been given the reins again to run yet another podcast without our good friends Ethan, Greg, or Jamie or Josh, and today's is a follow-up of a podcast that Ethan and I did about 2 or 3 weeks back, configuring BW NLS using Sybase IQ. It's got a lot of good traction in the community. Here I am in South Africa, and I know there's been quite a few sort of questions in the back channel, and we're very fortunate enough to be joined by 2 colleagues from SAP who've reached out to us just to give us more information from an SAP point of view of where SAP are taking nearline storage, how the licensing works, and just try to give us a more in-depth perception of where SAP are going with nearline storage. So just Ethan, how are you going? And then we'll introduce our colleagues from SAP.
I'm good, Clint. Thanks for setting this up again. I'm looking forward to talking to the colleagues that we will introduce in a moment. Okay,
Don, do you want to introduce yourself quickly and how you fit into the SAP world?
Yeah, my name's Don Brizendine, and I work in the data warehousing and HANA solutions management team. I come from a Sybase database background, work a lot with IQ, and have kind of focused on IQ NLS as we've brought it to market, and with some of the initial customers and work. So that's where I fit in.
Brilliant. Udav, are you there? Sorry. Hi, Udav, are you back online?
I am. Hey, guys. So Udav Gupta, part of the solution management team, on the same team with Don Brisden, and I'm mainly responsible for the commercializations of our platform technologies within our data warehousing suite of products.
Okay, so do you fall within the database and technology team, which is now part of merged with analytics, or?
Yes, I do. So I'm a part of the same platform group. We call it the platform group, which consists of the analytics group, the EPM group, the mobility group, the databases, and the data warehousing. And I'll be responsible for basically. Right now, I'm responsible for managing the commercializations of the data warehousing piece, which includes products like Sybase IQ, SAP HANA, SAP BW, and a few more other databases that we resell from our third-party partners.
Okay, and did you come across with the Sybase acquisition as well, or have always been part of SAP?
I've been a long time at SAP, so it's years at SAP. Started off with office integration product called Duet, went into NetWeaver, led the product management for BW Accelerator, and now a part of the solution management in the same capacity.
Okay, brilliant. So, just from my side, the feedback I've got from customers, and I've been talking about this for quite a while in terms of a great solution for BW customers, is for me various factors. I mean, obviously there's a performance benefits which are great, and another real great use case I see for this nearline storage option is really preparing customers for the move to HANA. I've said that quite often is I believe if you are an SAP customer, you will be running HANA in your BW instance some stage. And if you're not ready yet, especially sort of in emerging markets where I am, I feel by getting the nearline storage in, you're putting yourself in a much more powerful position to transition to HANA at a later date. So I just would love to, that's my opinion. I'd just love to hear from you guys, what other customers are saying, what use cases you're finding, and how it's been perceived in the market, because from what Ethan and I saw from a performance point of view and the compression benefits and all the other thing, it really looks like a very compelling solution.
Yeah, I mean, I think that migration HANA use case is one that, frankly, of the, this actually came available at the very end of the first quarter of this year, and and almost all of the initial sales were that use case is. Well, there are 2 use cases. One is prior to the migration, either short-term or long-term. We have some customers that, just like you say, have done this with the HANA migration a little bit further out in the future. But some, that's part of their actual migration strategy as they do the NLS move. It reduces the size of the database that gets moved to HANA and those types of things. So that's really initially the strongest market has been in that area. The other side are customers who had already implemented HANA and are looking out to the future and say this is sort of the size we see our HANA database as this data ages, how do we manage it, and then it becomes sort of a post-HANA implementation of the NLS product, and then they may start not age data, archive data for another year or two, but it's there and ready to go and ready for use. So we've seen less uptake on BW customers on other databases with no HANA plans, but we have talked to a number of those, and there is interest. In fact, we've got a couple of partners that are actually going to focus, I think, on that part of the market. You know, they have customers, BW customers, that they in their portfolio, and you know, sort of taking it. It's you know, sort of the acceleration when you have a. You know, I know we're going to talk benchmarks. We don't have a lot of formal benchmarks, but if you have a standard relational database system, almost anything other than HANA IQ for those queries that hit the NLS can really, you know, provide an improvement in performance over the standard RDBMS underneath. So.
Yeah, and that's something that has been a problem for BW in the past. I mean, especially once you get to BW sizes over 50, 100 terabytes, sorry, yeah. It gets to be, I'm sorry, over a terabyte. It gets to be a real issue when you're running your queries. Even if you're using BWA or something like that, if it returns just a ton of data, you know, scale out for BWA is relatively expensive, much like scale out for HANA. And so the option to have a system like IQ on the back end that has, from the perspective of somebody who's been in BW for a long time, a whole different level of scalability is kind of nice when you're looking at really big data warehouses.
Mm-hmm. And I think the key, I mean, Don, you touched on it for me, is that, you know, customers can really sort of ring-fence their HANA investment having this good archive solution. So they, you know, they're not going to have, their performance is not going to drop off as much in IQ. Obviously, it's not going to be as fast as in memory, but
right.
Still they're not going to have this runaway freight train of we're going to have to keep buying appliances to sort of feel the monster, so to speak, which I think is really compelling and a bit of a warm and fuzzy feeling if you've got a checkbook in hand.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, as we talk about the temperature of data and data lifecycle, I mean, it's an important piece of that whole managing your data. I mean, you know, data on IQ is really compared to almost anything. I mean, other than you know, disk-based archive, it's relatively inexpensive. It can be managed. You can manage your IQ implementation from a hardware standpoint. You know, obviously, you know, we set the Guinness Book of World Records just recently, reset it for data loading. But you don't have to configure your system so that it can load data at that. For an NLS solution, can be a relatively small configuration to handle. And so, you know, one of the ideas behind data in an NLS is that it's less expensive to administer, less expensive to manage. It doesn't get updated as much, so you can take different approaches to how you manage that data. And the bottom line is those approaches all reduce your cost of your data. Meanwhile, it's all there available for query, unlike an archive, where I talked to a customer actually a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about, you know, speeding up response time. He goes, well, right now, if someone has data in the archive they need, the response time is about 3 days because we've got to reload data and, you know, go through a process, and so you don't have to speed it up very much to beat that. So it's a different way to think about it, but you know, bottom line point is you can manage that IQ instance, either be really, really fast, load really, really fast, or maybe a little bit less fast and less expensive from a hardware standpoint. So
yeah, I think
gives you a lot of flexibility, I think, is the bottom line. I mean, the idea is that you put in the hands of the VW user how you manage that data, what's important, and how much you invest in data based on how you use it. I mean, for the real-time data, obviously it belongs in HANA. For some of the colder data, then it can go into the nearline storage.
So we got about a 400% performance increase hitting the DSO on IQ side compared to hitting the sort of summarized InfoCube on SQL Server. So it was pretty compelling. I mean, it was a small data set, and we were using Amazon boxes just as a sort of a POC, but the performance was great.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't do any optimization on either side, so SQL Server could have gone faster, I'm sure, and IQ could have gone faster as well, I'm sure. But that's just what we saw out of the box, and we were pretty impressed by that.
Yeah,
sorry. Go for it.
Well, I think one of the things with IQ, and one of the things we stress, is it is a low admin database, and we know that, you know, out of the box you're going to get, particularly in this use case, which is which is for IQ not particularly complex, you can get really good performance with IQ out of the box without having to do a lot of, spending time, a lot of brain cells tuning. In fact, once you set up and implement and do some basic, follow some of the guidelines we give, you shouldn't have to tune that thing all the time to get that kind of performance. It's not that you couldn't tune it to get optimum performance, and some people may want to do that. But again, we're trying to use it in this case as a way to get, low administrative costs, low operating costs. So you will see, IQ is pretty good out of the box, with a few indexes and stuff put in this case, and then you're off and ready to go. It's not a huge implementation investment.
So open disclosure for Don and Rudolph, I'm a complete Sybase IQ groupie, and anybody who watches this podcast knows that at any given opportunity I will shout at IQ. So I want to give an amen for everything you said there. Also being, I'm also ex-Sybase. So Rudolph, just from a pricing point of view, that's come up quite a bit in terms of customers. Is there a, I know from the sort of the Business Objects Analytics Edition, there's a runtime version of Sybase IQ, which customers can use, loading only from data services, only getting data access from business objects. Is there something similar for the BW world where there can be a standalone instance of IQ as a runtime edition?
Yeah, actually we went ahead and did that very same idea for the nearline storage as well. So what we went ahead and did is we created a SKU at SAP that's called the SAP Nearline Storage for BW. And what that allows you to do is basically get a runtime license of Sybase IQ that can be used purely acting as a nearline storage for BW. Now, when you have the BW nearline storage, you also require certain Sybase IQ options, which is the very large database option and the unstructured data processing option, because we do use certain data types like clubs, etc., that requires the unstructured data analysis option. And what we did is, as a part of this nearline storage SKU, we have actually included those options as well.
Okay, because we actually found out the hard way, because obviously because of the table partitioning of the VLDB,
right.
It created the table partitioning on the box. We tried to boot it up, and with our partner key, we didn't have the VLDB option, so the server wouldn't start. So we kind of find that out the hard way. That's obviously what happened under the cover. So it's great to know that's included.
Right. And the other option is also what we've gone ahead and done is for other customers who already have significant investments in Sybase IQ. What we've gone ahead and done is we made the BW nearline storage interface absolutely free. So if a customer already has an IQ instance, they can actually go ahead and leverage the same instance as a nearline storage for BW.
Wow, that's very compelling. I didn't know that. And does that mean they get access to the VLDB license as well for the table partitioning, or is that an addition?
They would have to buy that, because the way we see that is it's a full standalone IQ instance.
Yeah.
And basically require the VLDB option and the unstructured data processing option on that instance to basically support the nearline storage use case.
Okay, sure. I mean, it's a minimum investment compared to what they could possibly leverage off,
Exactly.
from my perspective.
Right.
And just in something else, in terms of, can you roll, let's assume, large IQ servers running multiplex? I don't actually know, is the NLS option supported on a multiplex environment yet? Or is it only simplex? And how does the licensing work?
So right now it's only simplex. We've not included the multiplex option as a part of the standard nearline storage offering. But if you're a customer who's going ahead with their own IQ instances and already deployed multiplex, then that's absolutely fine.
Okay.
As a part of the nearline storage, we basically include up to 32 cores of Sybase IQ, which is a fairly that's
similar to the Business Objects Analytics Edition, if I'm correct.
Very similar, correct.
Yeah. And I've just out there, people, I've run IQ instances that are terabytes and terabytes on 16 cores. So
Yeah.
Exactly.
With the right amount of memory, that's plenty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the angle that we took. We wanted to give plenty, and the licensing model for the BW nearline storage solution itself is per instance. So we only charge you for the proactive instance, so it's always tied to a proactive BW system, and we don't charge you anything for your non-productive system. So if you have multiple, let's say you have a typical BW landscape, which is dev, QA, production, and production recovery, disaster recovery, then we would only charge you once for the production system, and all the other systems would be free of cost.
And this is the nearline storage for BW option that you're talking about.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I always I always mention to people when they hear that 32 core, that doesn't mean you have to have a 32 core piece of hardware to run this. I mean, in fact, as you mentioned, I mean, we actually went out and looked, and if you go across all the IQ users, the average, I think we average about 8 to 10 cores or something like that. So what you do as you're looking at this, we help you determine how large a system you need, and for the average user, it's going to be in the probably 8 core max. Some may be larger than that. I mean, a 32 core IQ system is quite large. So we think we've got, I don't know, 95% of the BW users are going to be fine with it if they decide to go the runtime route with that license. So
help me out. I'm a complete IQ newbie. So when we're talking about 8 cores, I assume that there's kind of a amount of data per core that's the maximum and then an optimal. How does that shape up?
So you size an IQ. Sorry guys, I'll hop in.
Yeah, I'll let you jump in.
Pick me.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you typically size an IQ system on reads and writes. I mean, so and queries and what you're writing to the database. So it's two standalone. I think it's is it Mummy? There's a sizing guide that Sybase,
right,
maybe SAP released. Sure. So it's how many writes are happening concurrently. It's all about concurrency. And then on a separate operation, you say how many queries are happening and what are the complexity of those queries happen on a concurrent basis. So from a multiplex system, if you've got loads of users coming in, you can sort of split loads of queries coming in on different servers and then write into one main sort of the writer node, as they call it. Back in 15, 16, you can write NOR. But you size an IQ instance basically based on concurrency of how much data and how many connections are sort of writing to your server as well as how many people are querying. So if you look at a nearline storage point of view, your archiving is going to happen whatever objects you do once a day or whatever you decide to do, and your querying is all going to come through that same channel. So you're not going to get hammered by hundreds of queries. When a server CPU sort of usage spikes is when you have a huge concurrency of connections. Mm-hmm. That's where your
right,
sort of sizing can run away with yourself.
So
Did I do that justice, guys?
No, that's exactly right. And what we've done in this particular use case, actually working with Mark Moon, who you've mentioned, is kind of one of our IQ experts. He's been with the product since its inception, maybe since its inception 15 years ago. Because this is a little bit of a simplified use case, we've come up with sort of a formula where you can look at we look at everything, but you're exactly right. It's the number of concurrent queries that really make the biggest difference. We look at the concurrent queries, we look at how quickly you want to load the data, and do a quick calculation that gives you a pretty good feel for what the size of that system should be, with a little bit of space there for growth and everything. And so we can pretty easily, once you're looking at this, take a look at your BW usage. And right now it's sort of a manual calculation in a spreadsheet. I think with time, as we get a little bit further down the road, we'll be able to do some automated things. But you're right. IQ is a lot different than a lot of. It really is the concurrent users and queries are the biggest factor in the size. So you can have an extreme amount of data under storage with IQ. If you're not doing a bunch of advanced analytics and fancy things, or don't have hundreds of users, it can be a pretty modest system that's supporting all of that. So modest from a CPU standpoint, obviously, right, that the space costs money. So
yeah, so maybe we can ask the BW guys how complex the queries are that go through there. But from what we saw, not all that complex from an IQ perspective. So probably.
Yeah, they're pretty, and that's why we can kind of collapse this down to just the number of concurrent queries we think we're going to see from BW. So
great, that sounds really good.
So from my understanding, sorry, my limited BW understanding, the DSOs, all the hard work will happen at the application tier and store that DSO physically on disk, that data mod on disk. Am I right by saying that?
Well, yeah. So when you load a DSO, there's a lot of calculation that happens as far as delta calculation, but once that's done and stored on the BW database, then the archiving part is relatively simple. It's basically just copying a table over, and the same pretty much goes for cubes, although that's a little bit more complex. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that most of the calculation actually happens on the BW side and just populates a single table in IQ more or less. Okay. And then on the query side, what you're doing is you're getting queries from the OLAP engine sent down to either the database that BW is using or the nearline storage database. And those queries can get kind of complex depending on what your BEX query looks like. But usually they're relatively simple grouping queries that then are returned to the OLAP engine, and the OLAP engine would handle anything that's really complex, like exception aggregation, on the BW side. So generally the queries are relatively simple. There is some pushdown of particular types of counting exception aggregation, but again, not extremely complex types of queries. So.
Yep.
Okay, great. A tricky question, but benchmarks always come up when these kind of things. I mean, obviously, from my understanding, this is brand new, so nothing published yet. From, it's tough to sort of, we saying 400% based on our little demo, but, another great use case for me is obviously the compression benefits you're going to get in IQ. Do you offhand know any sort of compression ratios that customers are getting by archiving, say, 5 terabytes of a RDBMS into IQ, or nothing available yet?
We have some rules of thumbs that we use, and they're, we've obviously got experience with IQ with compression, over time, not just in this solution.
Yeah.
So the first thing is if you're moving data directly from HANA into IQ, the data is going to take up roughly the same amount of space. We actually use very similar, in some cases the same algorithms and same, the column base. But from a standard RDBMS, what we, for thumbnail, if it's not compressed in the database, and there are some that have some compression, but we usually say that you're going to see 50-60% conservatively. You do see as high as 90%. I think in this solution, the little bit of not the little bit. We've got a number of people implementing. We're getting some feedback from them. You can see 50 or 60%. You can figure on 50 or 60%. That's kind of what we calculate to start with. You may get more than that. May get less, but that's what you would typically see.
Yeah, and it's going to be different for InfoCubes versus DSOs as well, because cubes they're not compressed, but because of the star schema, they will often take up less space than a similar flat table.
Right, and then within IQ, obviously some of that data space is because of the column store. So you wouldn't get 100% compression, or you wouldn't get the same value against something like an InfoCube as you might against.
But you should see some, I think.
I think we have seen, and like I say, we don't have enough data points to really publish anything, but people are seeing compression, and certainly against storing as a file-based archive, you're going to see compression against that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be quite. I'm sure over time, as soon as more people adopt, you should probably get to quite a close number. But assuming from the enterprise data warehouse world, it really depends on your source system and the nature of your data. Whereas, in this solution, most things are coming from ERP. So depending what module, if you start getting sort of technical about it, whatever module is implemented, you should sort of almost be able to calculate what compression rate.
Right. Yeah. I think we'll get to that point. We've talked a little bit about the product kind of came out at the end of the first quarter. We've got in the double digits, in the teens number of people actually implementing now. We have a couple of customers that are live on some initial InfoCubes. The other interesting thing about this is that you can sort of, it's not like it has to be necessarily you turn this on and archive everything you have in your BW warehouse. You can start with a few InfoCubes or a few reports, and that's what we're seeing with some of our customers is that they kind of do their test, and they've brought up there's some series of reports that they use that actually need a lot of older historical data, archive type data, and they actually do those InfoCubes first and those reports so that those users can hit those reports. And so we've got I don't have anyone that we've got all the paperwork done as named references, but we've got a couple of customers that are at that stage where they've done a few InfoCubes, they're doing reports, and frankly, so far, people that are using this, the biggest, and I saw what you guys do, the biggest issue they've run into are a couple of initially some licensing things with the SciSam licensing and IQ, making sure that we had all that aligned, that they had the VLDB keys and everything was okay. In terms of prototyping and testing this and running it, it's been a pretty smooth run, and that makes sense if you look at this. On the BW side, the NLS sort of toolkit that third parties have used has been there since release 7.0 in various forms. So it's got a lot of age on it, let's say, a lot of use. IQ obviously is a proven solution. the connector that was built for this is really the new development that was done. Not a huge amount of coding, and then the actual database driver was based on the ASC driver, which was in production and used, and they just had to extend that a little bit. So one of the interesting things about this, it's a compelling solution, and certainly there's some investment, and we've got a roadmap of improvements to make, but there's a lot there that's been tested, so it's like bringing together a lot of really good components into a final solution. So while we don't have a huge number of people live, we have a huge data points. We got a lot of people working with it. We're following them closely and watching what they're doing. And so far, it's been a pretty smooth ride.
Good. Yeah, I think it seems to me that in the BW world there are a lot of use cases for this kind of technology. So, I mean, not least is what we talked about earlier, just relieving pressure from a BW system that's grown too large. But then HANA, brings in a whole new use case.
And the other thing that we mentioned, I can't remember, we had a small chat before, is that, and this is really fairly recently, is that there are plans now to backport this back to 7.0. The NLS toolkit's been there, and like I say, this is something we haven't really done a lot of public talking about yet. There actually is a service marketplace, slipping me what you call the notes. There's an SAP note where you could kind of do that manually. I would say that it's not for the faint of heart, but we have helped a customer go through backporting to 7.0, and there is a note out there for doing that now. After the first of the year, just talked with the product manager yesterday, there will be a support package that will implement this, in a much simpler way for that backporting to 7.0, and that's really important for the HANA migration scenario, I think, so that people don't have to necessarily do their upgrades before they implement the NLS. So it's pretty exciting that's going to happen, and there are obviously some details. I mean, it will work with NLS, the NLS kit as it was in 7.0. There are a couple of features that aren't there, and I think it's the optimized IFO cubes. I don't think can be archived in the 7.0 NLS, and they can now. But for the migration path, where that's probably not the most important thing, it's pretty exciting that we're going to get that backporting done. So.
Donna, also when I was looking at the public roadmap slides, it looked like there were plans eventually to allow updating archive partitions.
There are plans for that. I don't know the details of the specifics of that, but there are. That's come up at a couple of customers, and the product management team, I think realized that fairly early on after the release that they needed to handle that, and so that is in the roadmap in the futures.
Great.
Okay, guys. I think thanks so much, Don. It's been a great discussion, and for me, it really is, this combined with smart data access is really SAP making the real-time data platform real, and it does work tangibly. So I think it's a great solution. I really believe it has got a lot of legs, and I can't wait to find out more about it at TechEd and keep experimenting with it. So, just sort of closing thoughts from our point of view, always trying to help the community. Where do they get more information? For me, one question is the big data bus coming to Cape Town, which I don't think it is. We'll be able to get it across the shore.
We had to put the pontoons on it to make it there.
So
big investment.
Last week, Steve Lucas mentioned the whole big data bus and the big data business, and so just maybe some closing thoughts on that and where SAP are going and what we can look forward to that you are allowed to say.
Well, I think building on the whole platform idea, I mean, it's obvious when you look at at what we have, the assets we have at SAP and the partners we have, that we have, just all what you really need for a big data platform. And so I think, what we're doing is putting together a go-to-market organization that reflects that, and moving forward, and you'll be hearing a lot about it. You're right, the big data bus is, I think, taking off later this month, as I understand. I don't know, Udolph, if you know, and certainly at TechEd, there's going to be a lot of content around big data. But everything we've talking about today, certainly IQ and HANA, and are all part of the big data story, and certainly, stay tuned, I guess, is the best thing to say. You're going to be hearing a lot about big data from SAP here in the next few weeks.
Great. Thanks so much, Don.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Udav, any closing thoughts for us?
No, I mean we are at a really exciting juncture in the data warehousing business at SAP, and I think we've got the right line of products to basically help our customers do extreme data warehousing with SAP and non-SAP data.
Yep.
BW is basically taking multiple forms right now, where it's emerging from being a data warehouse or a solution that's always being associated with SAP landscapes to becoming more and more a solution that's now being associated with enterprise data warehousing. We're seeing more and more customers basically understand the direction that we're taking with BW, going with HANA, understanding the transition from in-memory solutions that we're supporting BW systems like BWA to HANA, and understanding the importance of having solutions like Sybase IQ acting as nearline storages to support data tiering between, whether it's expensive disk storage-based databases supporting the BW system or in-memory solutions supporting the BW system. It's very important to have the data tiering, and they're basically understanding the value that Sybase IQ can actually deliver in that space. So on the whole, very, very compelling 360-degree solution from SAP when it comes to enterprise data warehousing. With some of the other advancements that we're making on the BW side, we're basically driving it to becoming more and more user-friendly, more and more having a one-place stop to basically do a lot more data modeling in a very simpler fashion. So a lot of effort from SAP's side to basically make BW a really compelling solution for your enterprise data warehousing needs, or also for your active data warehousing needs.
Great.
Thanks so much. And just for the pricing, the customers can speak to their local SAP AE, and it will be on the price list, and they all have all the information they need.
Yep.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Udav.
Thank you so much. Thank you for setting this up, Clint and Ethan.
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us about this.
Ethan, closing thoughts? BW Guru?
I'm excited. I'm seeing also some of the things that Udav talked about as far as a renewed focus on development on BW as an enterprise data warehouse solution, and not just to get your data out of ERP so you can report on that solution. And so I think actually some of the focus that HANA has taken from BW around data mart solutions and how those should actually probably really more be in HANA now, and also the renewed focus on BW kind of user friendliness and enterprise data warehousing use cases is really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. It's been a good year, I think, the last year, and so hopefully we can keep it up.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. On the SCN blog post, we'll put the show notes. In the show notes, we'll put a link to the video where Ethan and I actually did do the whole configuration. Okay. And in the SCN blog post I did put up, someone asked for HANA benchmarks. So this is a shout out to the vendors who want to give us a HANA appliance. We'd love to get our hands dirty. so, shameless plug.
You can send it to my address.
We'll put a DS layered tattoo on it or something, so it'll be in good hands. And we promise not to spill any beer. So anyway, thanks Udav, Don, Ethan, thanks so much, guys, and yeah.
All right.
Watch the space.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
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 This podcast is hosted and sponsored by EV Technologies. Visit us online at SaveTheCMS.com. D-Slayer!